just started recording.
There we go. Super. Okay, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us. We thought the timing for this would be great with the season starting soon, hopefully. A little history on this. Maybe if we can switch the slides, Mike. You might notice, everybody, I'm logged in as Rosalia, my daughter, for her school account. So my name is Al Nadeau. A long time ago, I started writing Freefly training curriculum, and we tried to take the 15-ish pages of all that and turn it into a presentation. Our goal today is for you guys to be interactive. So please, when you have questions, please, chime in, raise your hand. We use whatever tools you want, and we'd be more than happy to get the discussion going. The goal here, there's no perfect presentation out there to talk about Freefly. As in anything else you're doing in life, you should always have multiple sources for learning and for development. So please don't just rely on us, and we're not going to be perfect, but if you guys ask the right kind of questions and stuff, we'll get the right discussion going. And there might even be more experienced people on the phone, on the line, who could potentially chime in. So with that, next slide, we'll get into the whole table of contents, keep going. Let's introduce the team. The Vertical North, we have, next slide, team intros. Unfortunately, Rich and JC probably won't be able to make it tonight, but on the team tonight, we have Mike, Monica, and myself. And maybe Monica, if you want to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, hello everyone. So my name is Monica. For those that don't know me, I jump primarily at Parachute Montreal, the South Shore or the North Shore. I've been jumping since 2011. I have about 1,200 skydives, and some people know this, but I've done equally amounts of belly flying as I've done free flying. But in the recent years, I've been doing a lot more free flying and being part of Vertical North. So I did a few records, a few Canadian records. I think in 2016 and was the last one we did. And I was part also of the women's vertical world record in 2013, so a few years back. And obviously I'm going to be training for the Canadian record this summer, world record, and the Project 19, so the women's world record in November. So good to see everyone.
Thanks, Monica. Mike?
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Mike Delisi. I've been skydiving since 2006. Started in Toronto here. I still jump in Toronto, usually Skydive Ontario or Skydive Burnaby, and Montreal for the most part, and then in the US quite a bit still. Have around 2,500, maybe 3,000 jumps now. I've gone through a lot of my ratings. So when I started out, I went through the Jump Master, Coach 1, Coach 2, Tandem Instructor, and Tunnel Instructor program as well. And been on 3 world record attempts, have 1 successful record under my belt so far, and aiming for a 2nd this year for the vertical 200 way. Helping to organize some of the camps and tryouts for the 200 way this year, as well as the Canadian records, and really stoked to be on the Vertical North team this past few seasons and help run some camps and kind of get back to the community and help everyone learn and grow here in Canada. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell for me.
Thank you, sir. And myself, my name is Al Nadeau. I've been skydiving since the 90s, so I'm a little bit older. Free flying since 1999. I think I have somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 jumps. I've been on 3 world records. I've been at every Canadian vertical record event since its inception back in 2004, I think. And founder of the Vertical North. And yeah, here we are. I started coaching free flying back in 2001. And again, to reiterate, I started building a curriculum back then. When tunnels first came to Canada, I thought I'd revamp the curriculum to try to put together somewhat of a bit of a best of both worlds combined into one approach for people to understand that one path, to get the clarity between both, in order to learn how to fly and which skills to develop in what sequence and all that good. This was a great opportunity. Kanina kind of approached me months ago and said, can the Vertical North give a seminar, you know, as kind of pre-season safety on Freefly and stuff like that. So we've revamped the curriculum. We've tried to condense those 12 to 15 pages of, you know, skills development and all that. And Monica was very, she volunteered to put it together in this presentation, when we appreciate the hard work she's done here. So, you know, no further ado, let's get into it. We'd really like for this to be interactive, so please chime in, raise your hand, ask a question, whatever. And here we go. All right, so tunnel and sky. You know, people have asked me, I didn't have any tunnels when I learned how to free fly. And back when I started free flying, it was in Canada, then nobody else was doing it. Not a lot of people were doing it. And I went to the States and it cost me an arm and a leg. I met some really wonderful people and I learned a lot from these coaches down there. But thankfully up here now today, things have changed. And with the advent of tunnels, I would be the first to admit that I wish I had more tunnel time. Nothing replaces the sky, clearly. However, if and when you have an opportunity to learn something new and to do it in the tunnel, if you're close enough, or if you can take a trip and hit a tunnel, there's absolutely nothing better than having an instructor next to you in a tunnel, placing your body the way it should be placed for you to develop some muscle memory and to learn something new. And then once you've got a pretty good handle on it, throw that into the sky, encapsulate the safety features you need around what you need to do in the sky. And I think your progression is going to be a lot more efficient. So we're trying to achieve that here in this curriculum. Next slide, Mike. Not going to reinvent the wheel when we're learning how to free fly. There are some basic fundamentals. Next slide again, Mike. We are big advocates of making sure you have a very strong belly flying foundation. And I think at this point, I'd let Monica speak to this, and away we go.
Yes, I've said a little bit in the intro, but I have a pretty strong background in belly flying. And I feel like that's part of the reason, or part of what helped me progress quite fast in free flying, because I had those strong fundamentals belly flying. So what we typically see is some people see the free flyers, they want to do free fly right away, then they skip the belly flying portion, and that ends up making their progression a little bit slower. So we highly encourage, so here we put some of the basic skills on the slide that everybody should be able to do before moving on to back flying or sit flying or head down flying eventually. And so this could be learned in the tunnel, but even in the sky, obviously all the fundamentals. So is it the aircraft exits, the awareness, the break off, the tracking, this is all things that you can practice in a position that's a bit more accessible to everyone. So once you get to free flying, all that awareness that you develop belly flying, it's you're already ready to go. So we're high advocates of practicing more belly skills before you move on to the free flying skills. Did I forget anything, Al and Mike? Or I think that was pretty much what we wanted to cover for belly, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a lot of mindset, fundamental building that you do in belly flying that actually clearly translates into all the disciplines. A lot of fundamentals you'd learn on how not to reach for a grip. It's something you never do in any kind of flying orientation. Mike?
Awesome. Yeah, and really good point, Monica. It's something we see over and over again. A lot of the camps that we run in the summer here, we'll sometimes divide up into groups, and you'll have kind of beginner, intermediate, and then the more advanced or ninja groups. And some of the most challenging jumps for those ninja groups are when you mix in a little bit of a belly, like, hey, let's get together in a round first, and then we're gonna flip it and build some cool points. And it really sometimes pushes even some of the best free flyers, because they've kind of either skipped over or haven't flown a lot of belly in a while. And it goes a long way being a well-rounded skydiver and not just rushing to get the head down and kind of skipping some of those fundamentals, because they will come back to bite you, and there'll be some jumps you'll have a hard time getting on, even when you've mastered Freefly. So we'll go over some Freefly safety tips, and kind of same point to what you mentioned there, Monica. My background, I kind of skipped over. I've had a lot of experience with VFS, competed on the Canadian national team with indoors a number of times for a few years now. Primarily in the tunnel, but a lot of work in the sky as well. And safety is a big one with Freefly, especially if you're rushing into it, you're getting into it early in your career, and maybe you still have your first or second rig, might be second hand, and maybe not really fit for you, and that can cause some issues when you look at the safety aspects. So on the gear side, having a well-maintained harness. So if you've got some secondhand gear, before you even start getting into Freefly jumps, it's always good to check with your rigger, check with your coach, have them look at your gear. It can create some real big problems for you and those around you if you have situations where your gear is not set up for it. So making sure your harness is safe, is got good integrity, and also that it's fitted properly. Having an opening, a premature opening on your belly is not a good thing, but it can be much worse in Freefly, mainly because of the orientation. So if you're in a sitting or head down orientation, you're moving a lot faster. The parachute's opening quicker than it's kind of designed to do, and you want to make sure that harness is holding on nice and tight. So always have that gear checked. If you're borrowing a rig, demoing a rig, and you're not sure, or even if you're sure, it's always good to get a second opinion on, is that harness, is that system designed for you? Is it Freefly friendly? And we'll talk a bit about what that actually means. So again, touching on premature openings, there's a number of ways to avoid that. That's the ultimate goal, is to avoid ever having one. Some of the common ways we see that are, not doing enough pin checks. So myself, I've gotten into the habit and really want to build muscle memory, just like you do with your emergency procedures. As I'm in the boarding area, I'm reaching back and checking my pin, I'm checking my PUD. Someone bumps up against me, I'm checking it again. As I get on the plane, I'm checking my pin. Every time I sit down or shift in the plane, I'm going to check it. And even things you may not think about. So, doing big ways and stuff where you're riding the plane up a lot throughout the day, you may be kind of crammed in there. I've had situations where just because I'm kind of leaning back in the back of the otter, putting pressure on that reserve flap, by the end of the day, I've noticed on one of my rigs, my reserve was a little bit loose, and just from compressing it, the reserve pin started to slide out till it was maybe like a quarter of an inch away from the loop. And so just things like that to look out for, constantly checking before you get in the plane and before you exit it as well. And then the other big one is your pilot chute. So same thing, you're checking to make sure it's stowed properly, but you want to make sure the gear is set up right for that as well. Ensuring you have a spandex pocket that's tight enough. And this happens to the most experienced flyers too. We saw on the, I think it was 2015 head down world record. You may or may not have seen a video of a really experienced camera flyer who had sort of a signature move. As the formation broke away on the big way head downs, you just have this base. There was a 10-way base at the time, and he would do this move where he'd come down in a sit and then fly through the center of the formation just before they all broke off. And his gear started to wear a little bit. The spandex on his pilot chute became a little bit loose, and as he flew sit underneath the round formation, his parachute actually deployed, came up through the middle of the formation, and if you look on the video, either end of his parachute was like nose length away from the flyers on either end. Like that was probably close to a multiple fatality, and like fingers crossed, lucky, it worked out. But never think that you're too experienced to be to experience a malfunction like that. So ingrain that in your habits and your muscle memory and those routines. And have people look and check out those around you too. Look out for those things, because you're all in the sky together, and your safety relies on other people being safe and having gear that's well maintained as well. Bungee cords is a good tool. So for those who don't know, you'll often see a bungee cord placed between the two leg straps to kind of help hold them together. In reality, we're having a discussion about this not too long ago with our team, and really that's kind of a fix for gear typically that's not really well suited for you. If you need to rely on a bungee cord to hold those leg straps together, you might want to consider, is your rig really properly sized for you? Is that a risk that you really want to take, that you may slip out of your leg straps and ultimately out of your rig if you have a premature opening? So a bungee cord's better than not having a tool that's good to have if your rig's not quite snug enough for you, but your ultimate goal should be to have gear that fits properly. And again, if you don't know if you should have one and if your rig fits properly, check with your coach, check with your rigger, and make sure your gear is safe for you. Leg straps, helmet, goggles, all those standard checks. We want to make sure we're performing, again, before we get on the plane, before we exit. Some things to think about with Freefly, higher wind speeds. So, those goggles that maybe are a little loose fitting when you're belly flying, now in Freefly, could actually cause a problem. And you don't want that to be happening while you're trying to learn a new skill. You don't want your goggles flying off, or maybe your helmet even shaking loose. Even for myself, after having a couple thousand jumps, getting onto some of these big way world records where we're hitting speeds that are touching 200 miles per hour, all of a sudden I found my my G3 almost shaking right off my head, the visor flying open because the elastics weren't tight enough. Things like that you may not really consider. So those higher speeds and the consequences, if your goggles fly off and you've got a bunch of people around you, you're moving at a fast speed, that could cause you to cork. So even just having proper fitted gear like a helmet or goggles can be a big safety concern. Jumpsuits, selecting the right gear for the formation you're going to be on. And that may be different for every jump. So, if you're jumping with some lighter, slower fallers versus maybe some heavier fallers or faster fallers, you may want to have some diversity in your jumpsuits and be comfortable flying in different gear. Audible altimeter. So I'd say that's a must-have for free flying. We learn to check our altimeter regularly and do that pretty well on belly jumps. But as you get into free fly, it becomes harder and harder to sometimes view your altimeter. So for myself, I like to move it to the inside of my wrist. I find that gives me more visibility depending on the type of jump I'm doing. But sometimes you don't get to check it quite as often as you like to, or it can be even difficult to see when you're moving at quicker speed. So having an audible, I'd say, is a must-have, just to give you that extra little safety net in case you do miss some of those break-off altitudes and things like that. They come by a lot quicker in free fly versus when you're flying belly. And GoPro, it's we all want to wear a camera on our head and kind of capture those awesome jumps, but it can become a distraction and kind of take away from some of those safety checks. So, I know a lot of people, even on world records, who on regular jumps they wear a GoPro every time, and when they get on these world record or just bigger wave formations, they'll take it off because it's one less distraction for them. They don't want to be distracted from their ultimate goal, which is kind of visualizing what their plan is going to be and just focusing on the jump. So, consider maybe not jumping with it when you're trying something new, something a little more challenging, and just focusing on the skydive, not having to worry about that little extra kind of nice to have. I'll go through these kind of quickly. So aircraft exit order. So just like with belly, we're going to exit slow to fast fallers. And you need to consider kind of what that means. So obviously, a smaller group is going to fall typically a little more faster than a big group. A 200 wave head down formation is going to actually fall pretty slow once it builds up. But also you want to consider, the size of the individuals on your jump and just kind of what you're doing on your jump. So, maybe you're going to exit belly first, get together, and then go into a free fly orientation, maybe a sit formation or something like that. You want to make sure to communicate that to the groups around you, because if you have a four-way and after you use a three-way, that's going to fly head down the whole time, but you're doing a bit of time on your belly, you're actually going to fall much slower overall, and you may actually want to consider yourself part of that belly group or kind of near the end of the belly group. And a lot of these things, if you're just getting to free fly, you're probably not going to know. So a good habit, and again, it doesn't matter how experienced you are. You'll see the most experienced guys and girls every single jump. They're getting to the boarding area a couple minutes early, talking to the rest of the groups, asking everyone what are they doing, what's going on in their jump, getting a feel for how fast they may fall, what orientation they're going to be, what altitude are they going to open up. Is someone maybe doing some head down flying, but they're planning to open at $5,000 because they want to try out a new canopy. So get all that information, get to the boarding area early, and try and figure that out, and get in the habit of doing that. A lot of the times at these events, we have coaches and organizers to kind of help sort that out. But it's good to understand that process yourself. And if you're not sure, talk to one of us, talk to a coach. We're someone at the drop zone, and try to make sure you understand how you keep yourself safe by kind of following those exit order rules.
Hey, Mike,
yeah.
Let's see if there are any questions. If anybody would like to chime in. Kenina, are you seeing any questions?
Not this time. Friendly reminder for anybody who does have any questions, please do raise your hand. We'd love to field them for you.
Awesome, thanks.
Cool. And then flight plan. So picking a heading that's perpendicular to the jump
Sorry,
run.
Mike, we do have a question. I don't know if this is the right person. Judith Kiss is what shows up. Judith?
Hi, guys. Thank you so much. I'm just about to do my PFF in a month, and I was just wondering if you can explain a little bit more about the openings in different positions and the safety, like on belly. Can you open when you're doing head down, or I know nothing about it, so I'm just interested.
In a nutshell, always open on your belly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little early for you to understand the various kind of different flying orientations until you do your PFF and go through your belly training. But I mean, there's no secret sauce here. You should always open belly to earth.
Okay. Can I have another question? A quick one?
And I'll just add to what Al said there. Talk to your instructor about that. They're, you know, the ultimate goal, like Al said, is to open on your belly. But you also don't want to sacrifice altitude for that stability. So, you know, if you're on your back, spinning out of control, you haven't learned maybe how to get back to your belly from your back. In a situation like that, once you get to that set altitude that you've decided you need to deploy, you're going to want to stick to that plan. And there's cases where you may deploy in a different orientation, but talk to your instructor about that, and they'll help you to develop some emergency procedures and understand what to do and when to do it.
Yeah, you're going to learn about what a hard deck is. But
okay. Okay, thanks. I have another quick question, if I may. I was always wondering, but people talk about the emergency procedure when you have to do your emergency parachute opening. Like you're basically like standing and you release one and you're not on your belly, you're standing. Like how safe it is, how does it work? Or do you still have to find your way onto your belly?
I think, again, to Mike's point, I think these are the kind of conversation you really want to have with your instructor when you go through the PFF program.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to answer your question, Judith. It's just that it's a long topic and it requires a deeper discussion. And you know, it probably would be it would be a lot better for you to have that conversation with your instructor.
Sure. Yeah, I understand. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for the question. Yeah. Any more?
That looks like it for now. Thanks, Judith.
Awesome.
Thank you.
The flight plan. So, you know, something I always recommend to anyone kind of learning a new free fly skill, and especially trying it on their own, even if they believe they're, you know, have kind of nailed that skill down, is to fly perpendicular to the jump run. So, you know, number one, before you get on the plane, understanding what direction the plane is going and what that looks like from the sky. And then before you exit, looking down and kind of, you know, verifying the plane is going, you know, north, east, southwest, roughly. And then when you get out, you're going to want to look 90 degrees off of that jump run. And the reason for that is typically what happens when you're learning a sit fly position is that you're going to either backslide or slide forward, typically backward. And basically what's happening now is you're tracking. So if you're facing the same direction as the jump run, you're now going to move towards either the group before you or the group after you. And that's even more amplified when you're learning head down. Just a tiny bit of off access is going to basically put you into an angle dive. And I've myself, when I was first trying to learn head down, there weren't a lot of free flyers in our community. I was 182 drop zone and just getting out by myself, trying to figure it out. And I remember getting out of a 182. I was the first group, there was a second group, and then a third group. And when I opened up, I had actually passed the third group in the sky. And it kind of gave me a bit of a wake up call, and I didn't actually understand what had happened. And I got up on the next jump, got a coach, asked them to come watch me and tell me what was going on. They kind of hinted that was probably what was happening. And they watched me. And in fact, instead of being head down, I was on my back with my head aimed straight back. And to my visual kind of reference, it looked like I was head down, but I was actually just tracking on my back for that whole jump, basically. So you always want to face 90 off. That way you're not going toward one of those other groups. So really important. And if you, you know, if you're getting on a plane and you're asking, you know, about the exit order, and someone says, hey, I'm going to do some solo free fly, that should be a warning in your mind, even if it's someone else. And, you know, start asking some questions. How experienced are you? And even if they are experienced at it, it's always good to kind of recommend, make sure you're that 90 degrees off the jump run, because a lot of people don't necessarily consider that. Corkproof. So, a great skill to have is the ability not to get knocked out of orientation. It does happen, and that's where you want to have a fallback or a recovery position. So if you're working with a coach on a sit fly jump, ideally you're not going to be able to get knocked out of that sit position at all. And a good way to kind of develop those skills are definitely in the tunnel, where you can just kind of drill those stability drills over and over again. But if you do lose your position, you want to maintain that same fall rate. So that's where we're going to work on recovery position. So typically in sit, you're going to immediately want to go to your back. Go into belly, you're going to lose whoever you're on that jump with almost immediately. So getting into that fallback position, understanding what that's going to look like ahead of time and how you're going to recover and get back with the group. And having a plan B. So again, always assuming that things probably won't go right on most skydives. What's plan B? What happens when the skydive doesn't go to plan the way you dirt dived it?
Sorry, Mike, I'm just going to check in on, there's Dan here who has his hand up, or who has their hand up. I'm not sure if there's a question that's just related to what you were speaking of. Dan?
Yes, just very quickly. It's been mentioned here once before, but it's also mentioned in the third column, just maybe clear up. I've never heard of the term corkproof.
Yeah, it's something that it's a term that was coined a long time ago. It's in comparison to what the cork does on a champagne bottle. It just pops up, right? So if you imagine belly speed 120, free fly speed average 160 miles per hour. If you fall off a vertical flying position, head up or head down, and you go to your belly and you're around other people that are going 160 miles an hour, you're looking at a potential collision at 20, 30, 40 miles an hour. Not a good thing. So until you can be solid and hold that kind of a speed and a fall rate, you should never be jumping around other people other than a coach.
Yeah, well put down.
Thanks, Dan. And thanks for the answer, Neil.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, always having a plan B, understanding what's going to happen when the jump doesn't go to plan. Maybe the exit, you've got a linked exit and it blows apart out the door. Who's going to set the base? Who's everyone going to? If you're on a 5-6 way and two people go that way, two people go that way, you're now on two different skydives. So having a clear plan, what's going to happen, plan B, plan C. If this or that goes wrong, that should be part of your dirt dive too. And again, if you're not sure how to develop that, work with a coach, talk to one of us or someone who's got a little more experience and kind of understand how to create those additional plans once you start jumping without your coach. And then break off proximity and level. So as you get into free fly, again, things are happening a lot faster, you're moving quicker, and you're probably not going to be super proficient at tracking away as much as you would be on belly. So give yourself a little extra buffer. Typically, you want to break away at a minimum of 5,000, probably 5,500, maybe 6,000 on some jumps, just to make sure you can comfortably get away from that group. And that's going to change depending on the size of the group and how experienced everyone is at kind of getting away and tracking off. So someone learning a new skill is going to need a bit more time to go from that new orientation, maybe a sit, to their back, start to move away, get onto their belly. You may want to give an extra 1,000 or 2,000 feet. So having that additional time is pretty crucial.
Yeah, so just the last point on this slide I would say is work backwards with regards to the most important part of the skydive, which is opening your parachute and landing safely. If you are in a group where not every individual can stay visible, proximity and levels wise at altitude for breakoff, then you're not in a safe group. I can't stress it enough when people are saying, hey, let's go do a skydive, and it turns into a 4-way, a 5-way, a 6-way. Not everybody's skill levels are the same. People have not yet practiced enough free fly. You've got George barely seen in the horizon, and Fred behind me, and whatever turns into a zoo, and then 5,000 feet hits. Nobody knows where anybody is. Which direction are you tracking? When are you opening your parachute? Like, if you don't see each other and you're not on level and then you're not close to each other, you're on the wrong skydive. Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, Al. All right, so we're going to move over to back flying. Monica, you can take it away.
Yeah, hello. So for back flying, so we're going to talk a little bit about certain positions that we learn specifically in the tunnel, but also how to bring that to the sky. So in the tunnel, typically you would learn at first your neutral or your stable backfly position. But if we're taking it out of the door in a skydive and you're learning backflying, you're going to want to exit on your belly at first, right? A safe exit. And then with a coach, practice that belly to back barrel roll. So maybe we can open up the YouTube link, Mike, just to see what that looks like, to get a visual of what backflying is for those of you who are not familiar with that.
Yeah, while he's opening that, we should have mentioned earlier, we rely a lot on the IBA videos, so we're not going to link them all here. We're going to show you them all to you either, but you should all be very familiar with the website in order to get those videos. The instructional videos are amazing.
Yeah, on YouTube, if you type the IBA channel, there's literally, like you can see it on the right side of my screen, there is literally all the basic positions from the belly neutral position all the way to like Freefly Pro dynamic lines. And they explain a little bit what you do. You can see it. And I would highly, this is what I did for my personal progression, and I would highly recommend it for everyone, is even before getting coached in a tunnel or in the sky, just going to look at where you are and where you want to go, and watching those videos will help you to visualize a little bit what you're supposed to do. And that will definitely make your progression a little bit faster. And we didn't mention at the beginning of the slides, so we could go back to the presentation, Mike. Why is backflying so important? So we mentioned a little bit on the previous slide for safety, your backflying position. So once you're good with your belly flying and you want to move to free flying, backflying is your neutral fall back flying position. So Al mentioned it a little bit, like the Corkproof. If you have people falling at different fall rates, so typically for belly and for head up or head down, the fall rates will be quite different. And if you lose your balance, you end up not being able to maintain that position. You want to have that position that's safe to maintain that same speed as everyone else on the skydive. So back flying will help you to maintain that speed, whereas if you go back on your belly, you're going to be going way slower than the other people who are free flying. So super important to have that confidence that no matter what skill you're learning, you can always come back to your back flying position and not go back to your belly. So in the sky, you would probably learn belly to back at first, but obviously in the tunnel, you would for sure learn just how to back fly in a stable position. In the sky, it's a little bit different because you do have the rig on your back, right? In the tunnel, you don't get that same feeling, but it's super good practice in the tunnel to bring it to the sky afterwards. So the advantage of the backfly position, yes, Al, I saw you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, I just want to, I mentioned it earlier, with regards to efficiency and cost effectiveness, it is a little bit more difficult to teach you how to backfly in the sky. It'll take multiple jumps. It is more difficult for a coach to follow you. Whereas if in the tunnel, for obvious reasons, you will learn a lot faster and it will cost you a lot less money. So not everybody has access to a tunnel. However, for those that do, highly recommend going to tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you said, Al, in the sky, most of the time you'll be able to do that 45-second, 50-second free fall. Then you open your parachute. The time you get back to the ground, you debrief, you go back up. You don't end up doing that much free fall in a day. So those of you who do have access to a tunnel, yeah, definitely efficient way to learn for sure. So super important for the back, the break off when you are on your back. So obviously you have that vertical fall rate, and the same way as you would on a belly skydive, you want to create that horizontal separation. So you want to track away as you did on your belly to not be close to anyone else before you open. And what we would suggest when you break off on your back, so you're looking at the sky, is looking in the direction that you want to be tracking towards. At first, that might be a position that's a little bit awkward because you've never been in that position that you're back flying. But that allows you to clear the airspace above you. So if ever you are flying in a group and there's your coach or someone else that's sit flying, well, you're making sure that above you there's nobody. And then afterwards, you can turn to your belly, wave off, and ready for deployment of your parachute. Did I forget anything for back flying, guys? So here there's other skills. So obviously turn, so left, right turn. You're going to learn how to fly up, fly down, how to go from back to belly. So those are all transitions that are very easily practiced in the tunnel, and that will get you a bit more confidence for your back flying, which could be an awkward position when you've just done belly at first and you're on your back and you don't really know how to do those turns, but that will get you really comfortable to move on to your sit position afterwards.
So one thing I would add, and if there are questions, Kanina, let us know. You know, specifically in the tunnel, all of these skills are required because there's a lot more coming down the road that is particularly, more focused on in the tunnel. If I had to pick one of these skills that's most important, a couple of these skills from a backflying perspective on your sky progression, number one is fall rate. Clearly, we've mentioned that. It's a fall back position. When you go and learn how to fly in head up position, if you lose that orientation, you go to your fast fall back position in your back and then try to transition back to a head up. The other thing is maintaining contact, eye contact with the person you're flying with. So, the back to belly front flip, all that other stuff, yes, neat stuff to learn. However, if you're focused in the sky, having the ability to turn on your back in order to keep eyesight on the person you're flying with would be the number one skill other than your fall rate that you need to focus on in the sky.
That sounds awesome. Do we have any questions for back flying? And we said it before, but go look at the YouTube IBA channel for that. You'll have all the links that we didn't show you today because we want to move to head up and head down flying, but you have all those videos. It's super good website.
Cool. Have I got head up flying, guys?
Yeah, over to you, Al.
All right, cool. So just to give you all a big picture of the various steps, right, the sequence, we're not reinventing the wheel here. You start with belly flying, you go to back flying, and when you go to back flying, your fall back position is belly. Then when you go from back flying to the next level, it's head up flying. And if you fall out of your head up, you've got that fast back flying to keep your fall rate and to not waste your skydive and then transition that back into an attempt to go head up. And then down the road, the next step is when you go into head down. You shouldn't be trying head down until you're super solid in head up flying, because head up flying will be your fallback position. So I hope that makes sense for everybody. Also something to consider in the sky, when you're paying a coach, having that plan B and making sure you have mastered that neutral position to fall back when you're trying something new, is you're not going to waste your coach's skydive. You're not going to waste your money on the coach's skydive by losing your body position, and then proximity and levels are completely out the door. And next thing you know, you're alone in the sky waiting for opening altitude and you've wasted a coach jump. So the first thing I ever learned in Freefly was the fact that the safest way to progress was also the most efficient way to progress. If you keep that in mind and you focus on these fallback positions, you're going to be more efficient with your time, with your money, and less frustrated with your progress. So head up flying. Again, to reiterate, if you have the opportunity to go to a wind tunnel and to learn how to do this, a lot more efficient. In the sky, the additional pieces here that you need to learn are the exit. And again, we're doing break-offs and tracking. So, I mean, a stable head-up position. Unfortunately, I don't have my wooden soldier, and it shows me all the different angles. But if you think of 90 degrees at the knees, at the hips, and at the shoulders, that would be the stable head-up position. Mike, if you want to go to neutral, stable, sit, fly position on the YouTube link, that'll demonstrate it for everyone. Clickety click. Not sure if it's working. Aha. So you see that transition? That's a bit choppy, but in order to transition from your back to a head up position. The knees come together and the head goes actually back in order to get more air surface area to punch yourself upwards. Again, we're not going to waste too much time reviewing the video here. We're just showing you guys that these videos exist and you really should be reviewing on your own. But I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel as well. Every new flying orientation goes through the same steps that you learned when you did your belly post PFF program. You learn how to be in a neutral position. You learn how to do left turn, right turn, forward movement, backwards movement, and then levels up and down. Same thing over and over again when you go to your back, when you go to your head up, and then in the future when you go to your head down body position. Learning these 6 controls are the only way for you to end up to be proficient enough to fly with other individuals, to get points done and to build formations. Learn to exit the aircraft in a stable manner. You have to remember when the aircraft is moving forward, the relative wind is coming from the front of the aircraft. You have 2 choices in a head up exit. You can exit facing the tail or facing the front of it, facing the nose. Unfortunately, I don't have that individual, but if you imagine the aircraft and the relative wind coming from in front of you, when you exit the aircraft, you want your feet in the wind. That's a head up position on exit. A little bit difficult to master. Highly recommend doing solos at first, and then either getting a more experienced free flyer to jump with or a coach, but definitely somebody that would be safe to fly around with, was a lot more experienced than you do, in order to gauge what those exits look like. Mike, Monica?
No, I think that's pretty good. If you guys want to have like that better visual, if you even tap on just on Google, like head up skydive, there's a lot of there's actually records that were completed head up flying, which are typically quite hard to do, but you'll get that visual of how the flyers exit the aircraft and how they keep their feet in their relative winds. So if you want to have that better visual, there's so many videos online that can help you having that that better understanding of how to exit out of the aircraft.
Yeah. There's a lot of technique here that needs to be learned. Unfortunately, it's not feasible for us to, unless we were to focus on just one part of this presentation and to spend an hour or 2 talking about one flying orientation, which we can't do. Our goal here today is to show you what the sequence of learning of development would look like, and then for you individuals to go and dive in a little bit deeper. Any questions?
There does not appear to be any questions at this time.
And I don't know if we mentioned it quite briefly. I think with Mike, you mentioned your experience with VFS, and obviously if you want to progress in free flying and eventually get to big wave flying, so you want to be able to get on those records or just start to be a little bit more people on the skydive, and you want to practice those docks. I did that also in my progression. And I think Mike did quite a bit as well. Practice those VFS. So even if it's just a 2-way with someone else, there's so many dives with docking that you can practice. And just to get to fly with someone else and take those docks, even in a tunnel, you'll feel so much more comfortable using your legs and not so much your arms. So your arms are a bit more free to dock, and that will give you a solid base afterwards to continue either to head down and afterwards even for big waves. So we see that the tendency, or the new thing, I think a lot of people have heard, is angle flying is quite the trend right now for flying. But unfortunately, angle flying doesn't help you as much for all the big wave stuff because you're moving continuously. So VFS is an excellent way to practice those skills to get ready for those big wave static skydives. So if anyone does want to practice, get a coach, get a flying buddy to do some VFS, it will definitely help you quite a bit for those docks.
Yeah. And I'll finish with the break off again for head up flying. When you're a novice and you're just learning, You don't always have the opportunity to go find a coach or to find someone more experienced, but if you can find a buddy that's at the same level you are, and you brief a really good dive plan, it is feasible for you to have a safe skydive, even if you're not ready yet to do the perfect, head up to backtrack away from each other. One of the things you can do, and give yourself enough time, set your ditters for about 5.5, give yourself 2,000 feet to track away from each other. And one of the first things you could do, well, you have two choices. One person could be the base that stays at the center, and one person takes off and practices that track. Another thing you can do is for two individuals to kind of just back away from each other. The number one thing most people do at the beginning when they learn how to fly head up is have too much chest into the wind. And what this does, it makes them backtrack. When you learn to stop doing that, you can come back and actually use that as a break-off tool where two individuals look at each other at about 5.5, give yourself 2,000 feet, lean towards the wind, and then just get that horizontal separation away from each other, and then practice your transition and keep a track going away from each other. So there are ways to safely finish a skydive, even if you're not at a high level of experience, but you got to plan it ahead and make sure you've got a good visual in your mind. And visualizing and planning with your buddy is one of the best things you could always do to stay safe. So, cool.
Awesome, thanks, Al. Yeah, and totally agree. That's a great way to get some separation. But again, I'd recommend, even if you can't get a coach on the skydive, talk through it with someone a little more experienced, or a coach if you can, even on the ground, and make sure your break-off technique is going to be safe. A break-off technique where you back away from each other may be safe on a two-way, but maybe you've got a buddy shooting some video or a third person, and you always want to make sure that you're breaking off and seeing the direction you're going. So that can be considered a bit more of an advanced move, especially if you have a lot of people on you. So you want to make sure that airspace is clear behind you on any skydive, but especially with Freefly as things get a little more complicated. So moving to the next section here. So head down flying. And kind of to Monica's point, these are all fundamentals. We need to build on them. And if you skip over the steps a little too quickly, they'll come back to kind of bite you and haunt you, and you'll find yourself progressing sort of backwards and having to go back to those earlier belly and sit fly stages, because you're not going to be able to kind of perform some of the things you want to do as you get into head down flying. We talked about recovery position. So your recovery position for a sit fly is typically going to be onto your back. So if you've just done enough to get your back sign off, but you're not really comfortable flying back, and you don't have a good recovery position, you're going to have a hard time staying on the skydive and being safe. And the same thing goes for moving from sit to head down. If you haven't really mastered that sit fly position, you're going to have a hard time learning head down. Even once you've learned the transition, you know how to fly head down. If you cork for a second, you go to sit, now you're maybe 500 feet away from the other person. You need to be able to get back down to them, be comfortable and sit, know how to move forward, backward, up and down, get back to that group, and then do your transition again. So take your time, work through those steps, and make sure you kind of master each skill. If you go ahead and try and skip to the next thing too quick, it's going to make it much harder for you to kind of learn and get on those jumps. So take your time as you go through those stages. So play a quick clip here just to look at what a neutral head down position looks like. So there's a few different ways to learn head down. In the tunnel, it's a great tool. You can have, basically we're talking about AFF or PFF earlier, you can have an instructor hold on to you and kind of help you learn that body position while they keep you stable. And you can actually do the same thing in the sky too. So if you find a good coach or instructor who can fly very proficiently and knows how to help hold on to you and help you stay in that position, typically they'll take a hand on your harness and kind of help keep you in place. So that can be a great way to learn. And of course, the tunnel is a great tool. Once you've learned that stable head down position, you're going to work just like on belly or anything with the other maneuvers. So turning left and right, driving forward and backward, and then moving up and down. And really you want to have those three axes really mastered before you start getting to bigger groups, flying with people who are less experienced or who aren't a coach per se. In the tunnel, it's easy to kind of reference and stay in a small space. It can get pretty dangerous in the sky. just going from a sit to a head down, you can very quickly accelerate. And in the tunnel, that may mean hitting the glass, which is going to hurt a bit, but you can only build up so much speed. In the sky, just being 20 feet away, you can drive at someone quick enough to knock them right out. So there's a lot of things that you really want to work with a coach, even if it's just on the ground. Understand some of the safety basics when you're learning head down, especially with someone else in the sky. We talked a bit about making sure that we're parallel to that jump run, so we're not tracking up and down the jump run. But also in that transition, if you got someone head down, you're in sit, and you transition facing them, and you do drive forward a bit, now you're colliding with them pretty quickly. So same thing, you actually want to be 9 degrees off on that sit position, transition to head down, and now if you kind of miss, you're not flying directly toward them. And that's going to be important to have that coach or that second person you're flying with be really heads up and very proficient, so that if you do drive towards them, they can get out of the way. If you're trying to learn with someone else who's also very new at it, that can become a bit dangerous too. So definitely would recommend having a coach for something like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna be the grandfather giving trouble to others, but I've seen this happen before. I've seen the video of some friends wanting to take somebody on a head down jump because they wanted to feel, hey, gee, what is it like to feel like going head down? No problem. We're going to do a head down exit. We're going to hold you. And then, when you lose it, we're all going to do a four-way belly, because this individual had zero free fly experience. When they let that individual go, the individual was already leaning into the wind, and they dropped grips, and that right into the person in front, head first into the chest. It didn't go well. Luckily, everybody survived, but it's just not something that you should be doing. So the amount of speed it's a race car when you're head down, period. And it's very dangerous if it's not done right. So do it right. Be safe.
Yeah, absolutely. It can go wrong very quick. And again, we can't always have access to a coach, but when you can, I definitely recommend it. Or once you get to a certain level where you're comfortable, you're safe, you can jump with a friend, get out there, put out a bunch of jumps, or put some tunnel time in. But then I would always recommend going back and referencing, getting a coach to even just have a look at some of your videos and give you some feedback. One thing that happened to me, I learned head down and a lot of my free fly and belly kind of pre-tunnels when they weren't as accessible. And when I did get in the tunnel, I had 200-300 jumps. And I pretty much had to unlearn everything I had learned, because I developed a lot of bad habits. I had muscle memory that told me when I'm in sit, put my arms way back here, or in belly. I just had some weird positions where I ended up spending just as much time unlearning those skills as I would have just learning them properly the first time. So definitely get out there, put some time out with your friends when you can be safe doing it. But try to get some guidance too from people that are more experienced, and try and catch some of those errors in body position earlier on. Because it's going to help you progress a lot quicker and save you from kind of repeating things and unlearning stuff. So head down exit, a great
Mike,
way
I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. There is a question in the chat from Dominic. On position is the same. On position is the same tunnel in the sky. I'm assuming it's referring to the position. Is the position in the tunnel the same as the sky?
Yeah,
correct me if I'm wrong, Dominic.
Great question. Yeah, so the answer is yes and no. Typically in the tunnel, you'll see more people learn a daffy position in the sky, where the arms are very wide, and you've got one leg out in front and one leg out back. In the tunnel, because we have less space, and typically we're doing more of VFS type maneuvers, we change that up a little bit. It's called shelf, so you have both arms in front and then both legs behind you. So there are two different positions, and typically in the tunnel, we see a lot of flyers learn shelf instead. It's a great position for the tunnel. It takes up less space, and it gives you more ability to kind of use your arms. You can take your arms out of the equation and still fly, and your leg's not in front of you, creating burbles for the person in front of you. So great, they're both great tools, and you actually really want to learn both. So when you get in the tunnel, you'll probably just learn, if you're going in the tunnel for your progression, one of the two skills, but make sure you learn both. And that we see that a lot on the big waves right now. So because there's so many tunnels and people are learning their progression through the tunnels, they come out only knowing how to fly shelf often. And we get people who are like qualified to be on these 200-way world record jumps, but they've never learned daffy. And it's actually a critical skill on a big way jump. because what happens is if you're only flying shelf, you've got both arms in front of you taking docks maybe, and now both legs behind you. And if someone bumps you from behind, you have no leg surface area in front of you to stop yourself from driving into the formation. So shelf and daffy are two different tools and two different ways of flying head down, but they both have a place. So yeah, the answer is you will learn probably a different technique in the tunnel. It's still applicable in the sky, but you'll want to make sure that you do learn both because they're going to kind of be required depending on the types of jumps you're doing later on.
Yeah, and from a speed perspective, just to finish that, you will notice as well, there's a bit of a catch-22 by learning in the tunnel. The tunnel will not give you full maximum speed at the beginning on how to learn head down. So it will fly a little bit slower and your body position will initially be a lot larger with your arms in front in a full shelf. And because you're trying to stay above the grid, and it's only when the speed comes up that you'll be able to open that up into more of your hands to the side and hopefully a daffy. But the translation to the sky is a little bit different. If you want to keep up to people in the sky when you're sky flying, you got to lose that body position and fly a little bit faster than you do in a tunnel.
Yeah, that's a great point, Alan, and we see that a lot too as students come out of the tunnel and start flying, especially on big waves. They typically do fly a lot slower, and we have to kind of unlearn a few skills and teach them to fly faster because the speeds that we typically fall, you're a little more relaxed in the sky. We can go much faster, and that makes it more stable. But in the tunnel, if you flew that body position, your head would just be on the net because the tunnel can't produce enough wind speed to fly in that orientation. So yeah, very good point. So head down exits. This is a great way to kind of get a taste for head down and start to learn what it feels like. And we talked about having like an AFF or PFF kind of progression. So what you can do is as you exit the plane, leave with a friend who can fly head down very proficiently, or maybe a coach or instructor. This is where we go back to, don't skip those fundamentals because what you want to do is actually exit on your back with your head towards the front of the plane or the wind. You're just going to exit in the back fly position. So you want to make sure you're comfortable with that position first. And basically you'll leave linked with your partner, maybe one hand, maybe two, and be just in that back fly position. And as the relative wind switches from the horizon to below you, you're going to transition to head down. So yeah, a great way to kind of get a taste for it is to leave with a bunch of experienced head down flyers. You leave on your back, get head down, and they're basically just going to hold you in place. And often we see people who can't even fly head down. They could hold that for the entire jump. Now, as soon as they get released, they typically cork. And that's where it's going to be really important to have that recovery position, being able to get to your sit and fly that fast and stay with the rest of the group. And maybe if you got to the point where you can transition, now you can fly your sit, get to the group, and transition back and try and get in there. But yeah, great way to learn is just on those exits, get a bit of a taste for it. You're basically going right into head down relative to that wind.
So to be safe, though, however, I just want to reiterate, if you're not with a coach, and even when you are with a good coach, you'll see the coach will always position you at first above the coach. And if you're flying with a friend, until you feel a little bit more solid and more secure on your exits for head down, I would highly recommend that you have the facing the ground exit above your friend. So your friend would be back to earth. The aircraft is going this way, you're above, right? You're facing the front of the aircraft and you're going into a head down position like that, so that if you do cork, you're not going to hurt someone above you. If you're going to drive a little too horizontal as the other person is transitioning the head down, if you're underneath that person and you don't understand yet what the angles are like, you could literally run into your buddy. So just be careful with that at first. Be above your buddy, be above your coach.
Good tip out. Thanks. Yeah, and as we go through the progression, we're going to do just like with sit or back or belly, kind of work on those different transitions. So going from, your head to a full front flip, half front flip, and kind of go through the different skill sets. Again, IBA channel is a great way to kind of look at that progression, look at how they recommend you learn each skill. There's some you kind of learn in parallel, but there's a bit of a sequence to it. So IBA is a great resource for kind of getting a feel for what those different positions look like. And again, just like sit, just like belly, when you're first learning, we're going to work on those kind of main axis. So up, down, turning left and right, and then driving forward and backward.
Yeah.
And in the IBA video, sorry, Mike, in the IBA videos, we haven't put the sound on for the presentation, but if you open up on YouTube, there's someone explaining what the flyer is doing. So you don't have to just guess what the flyer is doing. They'll actually explain on the video what you're seeing. So there's a question in the chat about daffy versus shelf, and they explain those two positions quite well in the neutral head down position.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Monica. And then, you know, getting to one of the most important parts of the skydive is our break off, right? Break off and track. So again, this comes back to having those fundamentals before you get into a big group, making sure you can fly, you know, up, down, left, right, drive forward and backward, because you're going to need all those skills when you go to break away from the group. Same goes for sit, same goes for belly and back. So just kind of going through what that track off looks like from a head down formation where you're sort of facing in towards your group. Just like on belly, you know, you want to turn 180 away from the group. And what that means is as you release grips, you're staying on level, you're not sinking, you're not floating, you're staying on level, turning 180 away. Once you've got your back exactly 180 from the formation, you're going to start driving forward. You're still staying on level, driving away from the group. And then you're going to slowly transition onto your back. And what we see a lot is jumpers will fly on their back for almost their whole track. You know, some people are really good at backtracking, and that's great. But the ideal is really you're just on your back just long enough to look up and make sure no one's above you. Because no matter how good you are backtracking, you're going to be even better tracking on your belly, assuming you haven't skipped through that progression too much. So you're on your back just long enough to look, make sure your airspace is clear, flip to belly, and now get as far away from the rest of the group as you can. One mistake we see a lot in head down flying, and even on some of the world records, and people get cut for this all the time, is making some sort of movement away from them blindly. So as they release grips, they start to slowly drift backward. And now you're just bumping into anyone who's potentially behind you. And as you get into bigger and bigger groups, that becomes more dangerous. So this is where, you know, practicing in the sky or in the tunnel and having a reference point becomes really important. And just really mastering that 180-degree turn. And obviously, the quicker you can snap that 180, clear your airspace, and start driving, the more efficient you're going to be at getting away from the formation. If you're turning a real slow 180, you know, do what you can do safely. But if you know it's going to take you a while to make that turn and then start to drive, transition, continue tracking, that's where you want to give yourself maybe a little more buffer, maybe, you know, 6,000 feet, maybe even more, depending on how many people you're jumping with. But really, you need to kind of master those skills. And this is a great opportunity to, you know, get some video of your break-offs, bring it to a coach, say, give me some feedback, someone who's experienced with some of those bigger way jumps. Because the track's really one of the most important parts to make sure you can get away from the group safely, give separation, and it really requires having all those different skill sets. So if you have just learned to kind of hold the head down, but you're not great at making that turn, staying on level, and driving on your back and on your belly, you know, it's not really the right time yet to get into a bigger group. So, you know, stay nice and small, 2-3 people. Make sure they are folks around you who are a little more experienced, and then as you get more confident with that break off, then maybe look at getting into to bigger group sizes.
The benefits of two ways are immense. They're safe and very efficient with regards. If you find a buddy who is somewhere close to the same level you are, you can both go get coaching on something new and then go work that together. And then you take turns playing who's the base and who's practicing the new skill. And then it's super safe for break-offs. There's only one person you need to worry about. You separate the sky in two hemispheres and go ahead and practice what needs to be practiced before you add more people in your group flying. Very important.
Definitely. So docking, and you're going to see these same kind of points over and over again. So it's no different from belly, from sit, from any other orientation, but we will see the same mistakes over and over again. So, you know, just like in belly flying, they'll tell you don't reach. What happens when you reach? As your arms go forward, you present more surface area and you drive backward. And now you have to drive more with your feet to try and catch up with that person and take the dock. So flying your body into the formation, getting your hand right over the person or the grip you're taking, and then taking that dock. So avoiding that reaching. Always keep flying. Super important in all orientations, but definitely free fly, especially once you get into things like angle flying. I see this a lot from students who learn mostly in the tunnel. So, maybe you're learning head down the tunnel. Your recovery position is going to be maybe back or sit. And it's not a big deal if you do cork and kind of go to that position, as long as you're kind of staying, nice and low, kind of near the net. You're not going up to the top of the diffuser. So a lot of people kind of get this reflex when they learn the tunnel to as soon as something doesn't feel right, they cork, get to their safe space, they feel comfortable, get back down, and then try again. In the sky, it becomes a little different and a little more dangerous because you're not just with 1 or 2 other people. You could be with 3, 4, 5, 10, 20 people. And if your instinct is to just cork, you're now not part of that same skydive unless you're really good at that transition and recovery position. And you can get very good at it, but typically you're not going to be through that learning process. So you want to kind of get out of that mindset of allowing yourself to just bail and go to that recovery position. That is your plan B, but always keep flying. And what that means is, if you're flying head down, instead of transitioning, get faster. It's going to make you more stable, and it's going to keep you on level. And angle flying is one we're not really touching on today, but it's one of the most important things is when you see any kind of bumper collision or burble in angle flying, the most dangerous thing you can do is slow down and have a change in speed or a change in elevation. So fly faster, fly stronger, and just try and hold that position. If you do have no choice and you've already started to bail, that's when you're going to go to that plan B, go to that recovery position, and then get back with the group as quickly as you can. And practice docks and being docked on. So again, two-way VFS is an amazing tool for all these different disciplines, whether you want to compete, be in big ways, or just be safe in the sky. So, get with a friend in the tunnel in the sky and just practice taking those docks. Even if your friend's giving you some harder docks, that's a great stability drill for you. So, as a coach, as I was getting into Freefly coaching, one of the biggest benefits for myself was it made me a better flyer because someone, even though maybe you may feel like, oh, I already know how to fly this skill and it feels like I'm wasting time by teaching someone else, it's actually a great way to improve your skills because by them bumping into you and taking docks, it's going to force you to fly better and stronger. So the more you can practice that, just getting with a friend, taking docks, being docked on, it's just going to improve your skills there. I'm going to play a quick link from this two-way VFS video here. So if you ever do decide to get into competition, VFS open dive pool. So here's the tunnel. Some of the first few maneuvers you'll notice are belly and back. So we talked about this earlier. You've worked your way up to Freefly, you're competent head down flyer, and you want to go compete now. And the first thing they're going to ask you to do is show how you can do some belly and back. So a lot of people get to the competition level, and all of a sudden they go, I'm actually not that good at back flying. And now they've got to spend another season just sort of working on that. So super important if your goal is to eventually compete and kind of even just for fun do some of these competitions. Don't move too fast through that progression. It's good to try different things out, but that belly and back is going to be important in VFS and in angle flying, dynamic flying. It's all going to come back, and you're going to need those skills later on.
And also a good reminder for some of us to go back and get current on those positions again.
Happens to all of us, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. And then the VFS 2 endorsement. So, kind of a good plan for getting into some more larger groups and working with people. It's kind of work through a plan like this. So, briefing with your coach, talking through that whole skydive, leading the dirt dive yourself. So, it's great to have a coach there or an instructor or organizer tell you what to do. But the best way to really learn is to do it yourself. And even if they're more experienced, ask, can I try and plan out this dive? Teach them how, tell them what you're going to do on the dive, get some feedback. Working on exiting stable and in your head down position. Join the coach on level and within 10 feet of proximity. So basically just setting some goals for yourself and, looking when you get on the ground, did we meet those goals? Trying to improve on them slowly. If, maybe you're 10, 20, 30 feet away on one skydive, just trying to close that gap each time is going to be a great tool and a great way to kind of learn and get through those things. And then again, IBA website is great resource to kind of look at these different transitions and things you're going to want to work on as you go through that progression. Anything I missed here, guys and girls?
No, sir. I would say before we go into any kind of Freefly Pro, I want to reiterate the most important part of any skydive is breaking off safely and opening parachutes safely away from each other. When you're building a skydive, especially at the novice stage, we get excited about jumping in groups. We want friends to jump with us. We want, more friends and more friends to jump together. Until you and your friends have the ability to modify levels, proximity, and make sure you can all see each other at breakoff. Until you have that, you need to stick to coaching or two ways. It's just not safe otherwise. I've seen too many zoo dives where people don't know where each other are at breakoff and tracking blindly and opening parachutes and hoping that the big sky is going to save them. You want to be smart, not lucky.
Yeah, and to add on to that, Al, it has a little bit more to do with like security, but I did an angle, a leading angle camp with Sharon Harnor back in the LAN. And one of the things, so I think this is good for everyone, and this is a trick I've been using now in every skydive I do, is to count the red flags. And you might be, okay, what is a red flag? But for example, is this a new drop zone, or is this a drop zone I'm used to? Is this the first time I'm jumping this canopy? Is this the first time I'm jumping this rig? Is this the first time I'm trying this maneuver? Is it the first time I'm flying with this new person? Is it the first time I'm part of a bigger group? So is it the first time I'm part of a 3-way, a 4-way, a 5-way? And are the winds a bit higher than what I'm used to? All these red flags, when you start to see them and they add up, and once you pass those 3, 4, 5 red flags, it's a sign that you shouldn't be doing that dive that you want to be doing. So I've been taking now that habit of every time I'm going to skydive, I just start to see, okay, is this my home drop zone? I'm familiar with everyone. Okay, I want to practice this new skill, but I'm with a coach. And often that's a plan to be safe and that everyone comes back on the ground healthy. And so yeah, anyway, so that's a trick that I've been using now since that coaching camp, and I would highly recommend you do the same. So for the Freefly Pro, we're not going to talk about it too much. It's just to give you an idea of, sorry, my cat is in the video, everything else that you can be doing. So maybe we can look just at, maybe on the next slide, Mike. Yeah, so maybe like just show like the 4-way VFS. It's just to get you a little bit inspired of the things that you can do down the line. So personally, one of the things I love about skydiving is that there's always something you can learn. You can always be a beginner at something. So we'll show you just like a 4-way VFS. So this is more like static flying. So you'll hear the terms often like static versus dynamic flying. I find both are super interesting. So static flying VFS, you'll see the flyers will have that orientation where they're head down, head up, and do some docks. And this is what we talked about earlier that really helps you for like all the big wave flying. That will help you quite a bit. I think we're looking for the video now. And then you have more like the dynamic flying, which leads a little bit to freestyle, angle flying. So typically it's a type of flying that you'll be in a movement. So we'll just show you a few videos. We don't want to get into everything that you can do, but just to get you maybe inspired on what's down the road and what are the possibilities. So 4-way VFS, so this is 4 people flying together, similar as 2-way VFS, but you'll be taking different points. And the objective of 4-way VFS for competitions would be to do the most amount of points in a certain time. So you have some dives that are planned out and you have to do the most points that you can. So you have some more simpler ones, and then you have some blocks as well that will have a little bit of movement. So that's an example of some 4-way VFS. So this camera, for those that are not familiar with the tunnel, so this would be a camera from the bottom of the tunnel. So you see the flyers' heads and feet. And then maybe we can just show another video, Mike, on, I'm not sure if we...
And again, while you're looking, people are asking about the slide deck and the links. It is being recorded. I don't think we're going to be sharing the slide deck, but again, all these links are on YouTube at the IBA site channel. So all we're doing here is showing, just copying from their website, you know, what a full eagle looks like with the link. So if you go to their site, their channel, you'll be able to find all of these and in the right sequence as well.
I'll put the link in the chat for the IBA channel page. So at least you guys can click on that link directly and see all the videos. You'll see it's quite simple. And maybe to finish the head down pro, the Freefly Pro, maybe we can put one of the dynamic flying videos. So we have one, I think it's from the IBA channel. And I think one is from Coralie, which is our freestyle. Yeah, so this one is actually, now this one is a dynamic flying in the tunnel. So this was back in 2008, but you'll see a little bit how they move a lot more in a tunnel than with VFS. So they will have some head up flying. So this was a final, so they were quite advanced. And then you'll have some movements incorporating head down layout, some movements. So that's an example of a dynamic competition. So quite advanced, but it could give you an idea of what's down the road if it's something that interests you. Is there something I was missing for the Freefly Pro guys?
No, other than the fact that you're looking at a lot of hours of training here.
Yes.
You're either working as a tunnel instructor, getting this good, or you've won the lottery.
Yes, don't get discouraged. Some of these people have over 1,000 hours and more of tunnel time. So like you said, Al, we all wish to be that good. Any questions, guys, on different types of flying or anything we've said so far?
I'm looking for questions. If you do have any questions, just raise your hand or type them out in the chat. While we're waiting for questions, I have a question. So I arranged this I had a discussion with Al a few months back, and coming from a Cessna 182 10.5 AGL drop zone, and we've had a few people over the years who are interested in free flying. Now this is lovely. It gives us you guys have certainly given us the progression, the stages of each movement and skill. But what sort of things should somebody from a Cessna 182 10.5 AGL drop zone be aware of and take note of to start their vertical
It's how I
career?
So listen, if it gives anybody out there any hope, that's how I learned out of Cessnas. Quite often below 11,000 feet, quite often either doing solos or two ways. And again, I'll reiterate, two ways are a ridiculous tool for you to learn and to progress. Each taking an opportunity to be the base and absolutely do nothing but keep fall rate and heading, and another individual trying new things. And then you just swap the next jump as often as you can. I mean, coming out of a Cessna is a little bit more complicated than a side door airplane, either a Caravan or a Twin Otter. But again, it starts on the ground. If you have a really smart plan on the ground, you'll achieve more in the sky. And that's with any kind of plane, Kanina, but even more important when you're jumping at a low altitude with limited amount of free fall time coming out of a Cessna that takes probably 5-10 minutes longer than another aircraft would take to get to that altitude. So your day only has so many hours and you're trying to maximize your progress. Start on the ground. You really gotta, visualize, plan ahead, be smart, have a plan B in your skydive, that if something doesn't work, the initial plan, there's a plan B, and you're not wasting your time trying to catch or find each other. God knows I did way too many of those, enough to tell myself I don't want more of those if I want to get good at this. So hopefully that helps.
That sounds helpful. Thank you. Anybody else with the question at this point?
Oh, and travel. I mean, honestly,
Of course.
I was in Florida, in Arizona, or in California at least 2-3 times a winter. Now, that's back in the day when there was nothing close anyways. These days, there's a lot more opportunities, even here just in Canada. And maybe not in the winter so much, but if you are at a Cessna drop zone, man, pack the car, road trip to somewhere where there's a plane. I know there's always a big plane that shows up at some province at some point in time in the summer during the season. You should always be planning to go there and jump out of the big planes at high altitudes and doing a lot more loads in a day.
Thanks, Al.
Okay, well, while we're waiting for questions, we're going to just talk about our season here for the Vertical North. So in case there are some experienced flyers here wondering what we're up to this year, we've kind of created some events already. So May 13 to 15, Mike's going to be doing some warm-ups for tryouts at Skydive Ontario. Mike, confirm here with me, is there a Skyvan that weekend?
Yes, it sounds like there is. I'm going to double check if it's the first or second weekend, but we will have one for sure one of those weekends.
All right. May 14, 15, South Shore, where there's at least 1 or 2 Twin Otters. Monica will be there again to do small groups. This is an opportunity for people who'd like to come to our Vertical North Big Way training camps, but they're still not too sure yet about approaches either from a dive or a floating position, and they want to nail down their breakoffs and get signed off to be safe in bigger groups. Monica's going to be there to specifically train you for that. May 20 to 22, we're doing the tryouts for the sequential record that's happening this summer. We're trying to beat our 2017 24-point way, I think it was. We're going to be doing some 35 ways out of 2 aircrafts for 3-4 points. It's going to be super cool. At Voltige, and also trying out Canadians for the first time ever in Canada. You can qualify for a world record for the vertical big ways. So we're super, super happy about that. Thanks, Monique. June 10 to 20th, again, more warm-ups with Mike. I'm not going to read all these. You guys can see these here. We're just trying to add a lot of small stuff around big stuff so that people can either warm up or qualify for those. We're just adding here potentially Parachute Ottawa July 2-3 to be confirmed, but I'll be hopefully hosting some 20 ways there out of a Skyvan. Again, more warm-ups at SDO, the warm-up camp at Voltige before we do the record, and the record again this year is going to be 18, 19, 20 at Voltige. And after that, also happy to announce, next slide, July 29th, there'll be another Vertical North camp at Skydive Burnaby. The event is being created as we speak, coming up soon. And that's it. I think, until we talk about, oh yeah, of course, we're going to the world record, August 22 to 26. I was there when we broke 100 back in 2009. And I am super stoked to be breaking 200 this year. So let's cross our fingers and make sure we get it. And then Monica and Mercedes and a few other badass females in Canada are going to be at the Project 19 Women's 100 Way Vertical World Record in November at Skydive, Arizona. Super proud of these people. Super proud of Veronica. Yes, absolutely. So yeah. Just some plugs for events this year. If you don't have questions yet, feel free to go to the Vertical North Facebook page. Like us, follow us, ask questions, post. There's discussions there. There's also a way to reach any one of the coaches there as well. If you don't feel comfortable asking a public question, by all means, reach out to us. Our goal is always, I see a hand, our goal is always to grow the sport and to help others develop and potentially transmit information so that you can get to where we are faster than it took us to get there. So always happy to help. Questions?
Looks like we had Monique in the chat, great info, and then we had a Claudine who had their hand up. Great from Monique. We have great info. Question going back to skier safety. My rig is built for me and I wear it quite tight. Should I still have a bungee?
If it's fitted well properly, you probably don't need it. I mean, the goal of the bungee, I've gotten used to having it. I probably don't need it because I have a custom fit Mirage. I still keep it. But I mean, the goal of the bungee is for potentially having some slippage when you're in a head up position, primarily in a sit. And you may, be kind of falling back to head up, and those leg straps could come up your legs a little bit into the knees. If you don't fix that before you open, you're in a bit of a world of hurt. So having the bungee keeps those leg straps from sliding up to your knees. But if
Yeah.
you're
Oh, sorry, Al.
No, it's
No,
okay.
I think for someone that's starting out in Freefly, I would definitely, like, I wore a bungee even if I had a custom rig when I was starting out, just because, like Al said, at first, especially sit flying, because in head down you won't have that problem, but sit flying, and considering it's your recovery position from head down, it's just like a safety. Like, it will be a little bit less comfortable under canopy, but you'd rather have that than having your leg straps going to your knees. So I think if you're starting out, I would highly recommend it. And as you progress, like, I personally don't wear one anymore, but I'm super used to my rig, and I've been doing lots of tunnel time and sky time. So, and I have a custom rig. So today I wouldn't wear one, but when I started out, I would definitely recommend. Yeah.
Yeah, and just
Thanks,
to add to
guys.
that, I would say, it does really matter it's different for each person. Talk to your coach, have them look at the rig, maybe a rigger. You don't want to find out on the skydive that you need it. And I've seen that happen where people think their rig fits well. It feels like it is on the ground. We had one jumper who actually didn't even know she almost slipped out of her rig until she posted a really cool photo of a preemie she had. And someone pointed out saying, hey, your one leg strap is past your knee. And she actually had no idea that even happened on the jump. So like Monica said, it's a good backup. And until you're really sure and confident that your gear is set up as it needs to be, it's not a bad thing to have.
And to be super clear, it is not unsafe to have a bungee whatsoever. Another question?
Claudine?
Yes, hello. I was wondering, for training camps, what would be like a minimum of proficiency or like indicators that the training camp would be more beneficial in learning terms?
Yeah, it depends on the type of training camp. So if you're looking at a standard big wave vertical training camp that the Vertical North holds, in the events, we'll always post what the safety prerequisites are. And it's basically, you're able to fly in small groups and take grips in a head down position. You're absolutely cork proof. You never fall off your head unless you have a major collision, and you can still recover from that. But yeah, able to take points both hands and fly in a daffy, shelf, all those different positions. You're able to safely approach a formation from a diving and a floating position, and you're able to break off safely and do a forward track and a head down motion away from the formation. It's not always 180, and then transitioning into a safe belly, back belly track. So. Other kinds of camps have different requirements. For Monica's warm-ups, you don't need that. The goal of Monica and Mike's warm-ups actually are to take small groups of 3-4 individuals and teach them how to do that before they go to the big way.
Okay, so more people starting in Freefly can go there without being too overwhelmed.
Correct. However, if you're learning how to fly head up, if you're learning how to fly head down, you don't go to a training camp for that. You go to a coach and you do 2 ways.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you. Yeah, and if anyone's interested in the, like, since it's only 3 or 4 ways, I won't be making like an actual event. So if someone's around Quebec area and you want to get on those 3 4-way groups, you can send me a message directly on Messenger, and I'll make sure that the groups, the levels are correct, and that everyone can get on the dives that I have planned. And if someone wants to organize like another event, I'm a teacher, so I'm off all summer. So if ever someone does need coaching, or even like you said, me and my friend, we're learning to sit fly, and we want to just practice some three-ways, just hit me up on Messenger, and it's my pleasure to organize something. Even if it's an unofficial event, it's my pleasure to, I can travel a little bit as well. Maybe not to BC, but I can travel a little bit to Ontario or Quebec for sure.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and if you ask around at any drop zone near you with regards to coaching, you're always going to be able to find a pretty qualified Freefly coach somewhere in your area. And if you're not sure, by all means, hit us up. We know a lot of people throughout the country in various drop zones and provinces. So we'd be happy to connect you with someone we know.
All right, thanks.
Cool. Any other questions? We're going on an hour and a half here, so we don't want to overstay our welcome. Again, please reach out to us if ever you do have questions. We're here and happy to help, always.
Thanks everyone for being here. It's been super nice to get to know a little bit of the new up-and-comer flyers. So thanks everyone for being there.
I don't think there's any other questions right now, but as Al has already suggested, do check out their Facebook page to connect with them and message them any questions that you may have not felt comfortable with sharing here, or that you hits you later. On behalf of CSPA, thanks for heading up this seminar for freefall progression for head vertical flying. Thank you so much for attending.
Thanks, Kenina. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Well, let's adios.
All right.
All right. I'll remain on here until everybody's gone. So just in case there are any other questions or concerns. Well, Colin, it looks like I could easily teach back to belly. But that'll be the extent of my coaching. Thanks for making it tonight. It's great to see you. Philip was here. Cool. Colin and Monica, looks like you two are the last ones here, including myself. So I will end this chat. Thanks for making it. Have a good night.